Here we go. Perfect. Thank you, Monica.
It's still loading. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So brief intro. So my name is Nikki. I'm the VP of Development at Palm Beach Tech. And you guys have joined one of our career workshops this morning, which I'm excited about. For anybody that doesn't know or hasn't attended them, because I do see some familiar faces this morning, is that we're doing these every Tuesday at 10 a.m., building up until our career workshop on July 15th. And we will be recording, and we're actually creating a playlist on YouTube. So I've gotten a lot of questions, where can people find these? I've missed them. So you're going to find, there's actually a talent playlist on our YouTube page where you can find all of our career workshops. So to give everybody a little bit of information that doesn't know about Palm Beach Tech, we're a tech nonprofit based in Palm Beach County. We actually just made the announcement a little less than a month ago that we are going to be expanding to become a regional South Florida organization. So now we've got members, yes, Todd, we've got members from Martin County all the way to Miami, which we're very proud of. It's been a lot of work over the last year or so. You know, basically our whole goal and mission is to build South Florida into a tech hub. So we work with the colleges, universities, coding schools, a lot of the headquarter jobs or headquarter companies here, trying to connect people, whether it's for job needs, educational purposes, a lot of our companies for resources or marketing or anything that they may need, but basically just connecting the community. And keeping people here, keeping people in the South Florida community, helping build these companies, attracting more talent to our area. So again, just really building the South Florida tech community. I will make sure to drop my information, our website and everything into the chat. But I wanted to go ahead and introduce Lindsay and Ellen. I don't know, Lindsay, if you were going to introduce yourself too, or if we were just going to go straight to Ellen, but wanted to give you guys a chance to talk a little bit about Flatiron and
Awesome. Yeah, I can introduce myself. My name is Lindsay. I work on the marketing team at Flatiron School. We're really honored to be a part of Palm Beach Tech. Joined just last week, so excited to get rolling with events and be here. But I will hand it over to Ellen, who is one of our career coaches at Flatiron School and helps our students find jobs after they graduate, once going through technical training with us for software engineering, data science, or cybersecurity. So with that, I'll let Ellen introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nikki and Monica, for putting this together. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to help Palm Beach Tech grow their community and also, you know, reach out to companies and whatnot. And also, I just want to add that we just started our cybersecurity actually like a couple months ago. We also have UX UI students, design students as well. So so I'm going to start working with the cybersecurity, but I know the software engineers, the data sciences, and the design students very well. So if you just give me a moment, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So, and then just let me present here. Okay, so as you all know, this is, Flatiron is actually, we just celebrated our 8th birthday. So Flatiron has been around a bit. We are a boot camp technology school. We have locations in New York, Seattle, Denver, Chicago, and we know that when it comes to job seeking, it's quite difficult. You know, there's one layer and then there's the hidden layer. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little today. Okay. Before we get started, I was wondering if everyone could make sure that their video is on, because I love to see faces, but also that your Microsoft is off so that everyone can see the presentation and also take notes if they want. And if you have questions, if you could use the chat for questions, that would be great. Nikki or Monica, if you would mind, if you could monitor the chat for me, that would be fantastic. Okay, and there will be time at the end for questions, so don't worry about it, okay? So a little bit about myself. So I'm a full-time coach here at Flatiron. As I said, these are the students that I service. And before then, I have about 5 years experience as a private coach. I, like Palm Beach Tech, also was really looking into college students. I worked with young and returning professionals, as well as people with disabilities, because I myself, I was a special ed teacher for a bit. I have, of course, a master's in special ed, and of course, life coaching. And I also have a master's from graphic communications. So that's where the graphic design and web development comes from. My particular specialty is actually when I work with my students or clients, my main goal is to align their career goals with their personal strengths and personal values. Because when you search for a job, you want to be as aligned to that job and you want to do your best. And the only way you can do your best is if you're aligned to yourself. So that's pretty much where my stance comes from. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so the agenda today, it's going to be really simple. We're going to talk about the job search for a little bit, what we wish it was like and what it's actually really like. Also, we're going to talk about how recruiters actually fill their job postings. It may be different than what you actually think, okay? And then from there, we're going to talk about the hidden job market. What are the less trafficked areas and how do you take action, okay? And then we're going to leave you with a summary and key takeaways. Okay, so when we think of our job search, we all wish it was this easy. With LinkedIn, we have that easy apply. So we all wish that we could just hit that button and take a nap and wait for our phone to ring. Obviously, it's not that simple. In fact, it's a little bit more like this, like a labyrinth. And also, it can be in various places. It can be, you are here, but job could be here, or here, or here, or even here. We have no idea. So it's about managing this labyrinth and managing techniques, how to get there. Okay, so most of the time when people look at recruiters, they think that that this is how it works. If you talk to any job seeker, well, the job seeker probably has an opening. So the recruiter probably has an opening. So the recruiter will post something on a job advertisement like LinkedIn or Glassdoor. And then they might go to recruitment agencies, professional associations, networking. And then if they get really desperate, they'll probably just go to their internal staff members and the hiring managers, and then maybe they'll promote somebody. Actually, to tell you the truth, it's the exact opposite. If they need to hire, if companies need to hire someone, they actually start with what they know. They start with promotions, and then they go to their hiring manager or staff members to see who they should hire. Now I'm going to pose a question to the audience, okay? Why do you think recruiters would actually do this? Recruiters or hiring managers or companies would actually do this? Does anyone have, I'm going to look to see if anybody has their hand up or if I can see. But Nikki or Monica, if you could help me out, that would be great too.
Is it because it's easier than posting a job ad than writing a job description?
Yes, it's easier. And also, especially in this economy, it's less cost. It's less overhead. When you onboard somebody new, it costs more money. And especially, we're going to get to this in a bit, but in this economy, in this global pandemic and also protest that we're in, people are more keen to do the fastest way and the least expensive way. Okay.
And Ellen, Michelle also put in the chat, says it's safer to go through someone you know.
Exactly. Good point, Michelle. And thank you for reminding me about that. Because when it comes to companies' cultures, they rather hire somebody who already knows them, who already knows how the companies work and can anticipate their moves even before they make them. Okay. So this is how it actually works. But unfortunately, let me just see. This is what job seekers usually do. They only go to the job advertisements, the LinkedIn. Maybe they'll reach out to recruiters, maybe they'll network, but most of the time job seekers do this. Thank you, Michelle, for that comment. Okay, so as you can see, it's not just this, it's the hidden market as well. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, this requires planning, patience, effort, confidence, and tenacity for sure. And we're going to show you how to get there. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you go about uncovering the hidden job market? First of all, like I said, I'm a coach that makes sure my students know themselves. The reason why is because you want to align yourself with the job that fits you the most. Okay, so you want to be clear on your goals, interests, background, and what you want. You want to be clear of like what type of industries interest you, what type of job function do you want, and what kind of things do you not want. That's also important. Also, in this economy, you really want to be mindful of, okay, I may love this industry, I may love this company, but are they hiring? Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that because the pandemic has shifted things a bit, but it's still pretty much the same. Okay, but and then of course you want to plan your approach. You want to have a game plan. A lot of clients, a lot of students, what they end up doing is they just throw arrows at a dartboard with a blindfold on. But you really want to make sure you're focused. So one of our coaches came up with this plan. This is what she gives to her students at her first meeting. She has them have like 2 columns per se, and she asks them to say, what do I like, or what am I good at, and what do I not like, and what am I not good at. And you will find that maybe, you know, it's black and white, like coding, like this person likes coding, is really good at it, and hates finance, not really interested. But students may also find that they're good at customer service, but they don't really like it, or that they like research. They rather do research than being unemployed. The key is to really look at these columns and see what are your deal breakers. Okay, for example, this person is good at customer service, but doesn't really like it. And this person really likes coding. So maybe that person can work with their coach or their school, and they can see, okay, well, what if I found, like, let's say this is my first tech job. What if I found something that's in customer service, but involves coding? And in fact, there is a position like that called solutions engineer. Okay, but it takes some efforts, and it takes some brainstorming. And of course, if you have a support like a coach, it's a good thing too to hash these lists out. Okay, so you definitely want to be clear on what you want, because this will save you a time in the long run. Now, I know that some of you may have questions like, well, what if I'm too specific? You know, I can't just be focused on this bullseye because I'm practicing, right? Because job seeking is like practicing. So I'm practicing. So don't I have to be more flexible? I talk to a lot of job seekers, and they say, I will just take anything. That's true. You want to have some leniency. So in the case of a person who's like looking for a solutions engineer, maybe they want to pick 3 industries that they're interested in terms of being a solutions engineer. That opens up the pathway a little bit, but it still keeps them focused. And for example, if they pick 3 industries like healthcare, entertainment, and education, there's still many ways they could take those 3 industries. Okay, so besides being focused, you may also need to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Okay, this requires you to think outside the box, or as some of us like to call it, avenues with less traffic. Okay, yes, you want to do things like LinkedIn and Indeed, but you also want to broaden your mind a bit. And at Flatiron, we call this Be Scrappy. This is actually part of our company's motto. It's that we're always thinking about what else we can do, what else we can improve, how can we be inventive? And sure, yeah, it takes some risk. It takes some like tenacity and for you to kind of have the steel fighter in you. But the more scrappy you are, the more creative you are, the more ideas and like the more ways you can stand out to employers. Okay, so when I'm talking about the less trafficked avenues, I'm not saying that you have to forego LinkedIn, Indeed, and Glassdoor. There is a tip when it comes to job searching that yes, that quantity does matter. So you're still gonna send out your 10, 15 applications per week. But how you're also gonna differ, you're going to also travel on the less trafficked areas. You're going to do both, okay? So what do I mean by less trafficked and why? Because 80% of jobs come from relationships. These less trafficked areas, these are the ways to build those relationships, okay? So what do I mean by less trafficked areas? Okay, so a lot of times people just send in an application and they wait to hear back. The thing is, if you target your job search, you can be more strategic. So in terms of things to target, we talked about targeting it down. So figure out the industries that you're most interested in. This means not only picking them, but researching the industries themselves. It's very common for our students and our clients to say, okay, I want to be a software developer. So I'm going to go to all the software developer meetups in the whole area. I'm going to take all the software development meetups in Miami or Palm Beach, and that's where I'm going to go. And that's targeted. That's great. But most of what you will find is, what do you think you will find when you go to software developer meetups? How could you be limiting yourself?
You find other software developers that are also looking for jobs.
Right. You find the exact same person that is you. Okay. You're finding basically your colleagues, which is great when you have a job. Okay, because you have something in common. And there's nothing wrong with it because you have a support system. But in terms of finding the people that are hiring, you need to go to the industries that interest you. Because when you go to the industries, like in this example, if you go to the health and wellness industries, you're going to be talking to the marketing department. You're going to be talking to the patient outreach person. You're going to be talking to those people that are going to look to you as the guru for technology. It's a much bigger pond, okay? Likewise, a lot of companies look for, what have you built after school? What have you built after your program? And a lot of our students say, well, I don't know what to build because it's like, I need a purpose and everything. So you know what? Going to volunteer sites like this, like Code for America or Volunteer for COVID, is a huge, huge plus, because this gives you potential work experience and something new you can talk about on your resume than just your average class assignments. Okay, and then finally, you want to really get to know, like, what's the industry doing? What are the head leaders doing? Where are they going? You want to look at industry conference pages. You want to look at the company, what they're doing, and their company leaders. Okay, so, and then also, now we're in a much different market. Usually it used to be that you can just go to LinkedIn and find who you want to talk to. Nowadays, because everybody's either home or working from home, or maybe spending half of their time in the office and then going home, everybody's on LinkedIn, but also sometimes they're too busy to answer things on LinkedIn. So sometimes a less intimidating way is maybe tweeting, doing a direct message. Maybe a developer you admire, or maybe a company a nonprofit you admire. A direct message is a good way to get their attention. Also Slacking. There's a lot of industry groups on Slack because no one can be in person, okay? Likewise, you wanna blog about your progress, okay? So if you built a project, a good way to show it is to blog about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so to reiterate, what do you want to look for when you're really researching an industry and getting to know people? You want to know, what are the hot trends now? What are the hot topics? And how can you help them? Okay, this is a very important point that we'll get to later, but it's important for you to speak their language. Just like you are looking at a company and saying, what's in it for me? They're looking at you and asking, what's in it for me? So speaking their language helps. Volunteer work, like we said, the influence in leaders, and also when we're talking about a project, what project can you do that can benefit a company right now? Especially in this pandemic, there are issues, there are situations that companies didn't even anticipate. So a question you may want to ask is, how is your company doing in the pandemic? How is your company taking the protest? What are their plans of action? And how can I help? Okay. Also podcast is really good, and going to speakers you admire, because you'll get their mindset, and then you'll get their company mindset as well. When you comment on LinkedIn articles, it's always important to make meaningful comments or post your own article to gain visibility. Now, this is something that also people tend to slack on. They tend to say, oh, great post. But if you say something more meaningful, like, I really resonated with that post, and I understand what this community is going through right now, and give an example, your comment is much more memorable than great article. Okay, so definitely make any interaction, any comment as meaningful as possible. Are there any questions in the chat? I'm just checking. Okay, perfect. Okay, so once you've targeted your leads, you definitely, how do you make sure that you get to know what they are? You want to set a Google alert, because Google will, Google has this little like reminder that will say, hey, this company just posted about this article or this position. So you definitely want to have Google alerts. Okay, you want to follow up with companies about their new developments, and demonstrate being engaged, being excited for what's happening in the industry. This is some people like this, some people don't. But reaching out to the CEO is actually a good way to get attention. I actually have a colleague of mine who I respect very much. When she first saw Flatiron, she really wanted to work for the company, but she could not for the life of her find someone to contact. She was searching, and she's been with Flatiron for a while. So this is like back in the beginning days. The only person she could find was the CEO. So you know what she did? She's like, what do I got to lose? Again, it's about being scrappy, okay? So she says, what do I have to lose? And then, so she emailed the CEO, complimented the mission and where Flatiron is going. The next thing she knows, one of our internal recruiters gave her a call for a phone screening. So you never know, okay? This link right here, it's an article. I will either, I think I'll work with Nikki and Monica to see how I can get these links to you. But definitely, actually, let me see what happens if I click on it. Okay, so basically, so this link, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put this in the chat. Okay, I have a couple more links that, okay, I have to stop sharing my screen. So you know what? I'm going to put this in the chat later, okay? Or I'll send this to Nikki or Monica so that you guys can see this, okay? Because unfortunately, I can't get oh, let me see if I do this. Huh. Oh, okay, great. I got the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this link in the chat for everyone.
If you drop them in the chat, Ellen, then I'll make sure with our email follow-up to include them in there as well.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And I think I have a few more links, so I think I'll just save those for your email follow-up.
Okay.
So that it doesn't take much time. But here's an email, here's a email template to help you network. Okay. All right. So let me go back to my presentation here. Okay. So let me see if it's still going. Okay. So, okay, there we go. Perfect. I got it back. Okay. So with that, I know you all are thinking, well, this is all great in theory, but what does this actually mean? How do I actually do that hidden market networking? So what this actually means is, let's say you have a job seeker whose focus is health and wellness. Okay. So this job seeker is of course going to look at the industry. How is the industry reaching its audience? Where are they thriving? And what is the main need in that area? What I tend to tell my current job seekers is that look for those companies that are doing well in the pandemic, but then also look for, even though that they're doing well, there's gotta be an area that's just too much for them. So for Zoom, for example, like I know a few weeks back, hopefully not now, Zoom, because everybody jumped on Zoom when the pandemic started, Zoom had to really upgrade its security security capabilities because of all the Zoom bullying and everything. As a cybersecurity, as a software developer, that's a different niche that you could definitely go into. It's like, well, let me tell you, I have this year's experience. I built these projects. Where can I help? Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is, of course, you want to build your own projects. So, for example, this person who's in health and wellness, they look at all the health and wellness apps, but they also want to contribute to something bigger. COVID is a great example, and also these volunteer sites, basically, they have real projects. They show you what the health and wellness organizations need, okay? So building a project that's also timely is a good idea. And then of course, you wanna see what the industry leaders are doing and what they're planning to do in the next few weeks or in the next month. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this, how it would go. So let's say Jane Doe here, or John Doe, would be focused in health and wellness. They would look at the companies that are still thriving, and then they would say, okay, what are their pain points? What do they possibly need? And then they, after his or her info interviews, they would build it. And maybe they want to contribute it to something, like maybe they would build it themselves based on their ideas, or maybe they would get an idea from a volunteer organization. Okay, then what they would want to do is see what developers are in the know. So they might search some like conference sites. And then as they put that together, once they built their project, they would probably want to do a direct message to a developer and say, look what I built. I would welcome your feedback. I would welcome your feedback. I know the health and wellness industry is going through this right now. Would you have time to look over my project? And of course, there's your connection. It's a connection that's unique. It's a connection that the person had to do to be scrappy and also be creative. Okay. Another thing is that you could build your project, blog about it, like we said, and then send that blog to industry leaders or other software developers or head of software engineering for companies. Okay. So, but of course, that's only part of the puzzle, because you don't have to do this on your own, especially if this is your first time. So basically, a person really learns when they observe and they see what other people are doing. So you want to look at who's posting projects and how can you connect with them, because maybe there's ins and outs that they know of that you don't know of. So you can anticipate those little dips. Okay, again, the leaders of the industry. And then of course, where the company is headed right now. Another resource that a lot of people forget about is their college alumni. You can always go back to your alma mater and look at the people who are in technology and have coffee with them. They've tried things that you probably haven't, and then they'll give you basically a map, do's and don'ts. Okay, and then finally, specific groups. If you have an interest, if you identify with a certain group, this is also Women in Tech, Data Science, Latinx, Out in Tech. They're great organizations to join because you will always have a support system and you will always be supported in trying scrappy new ventures, like reaching out to somebody you don't know with a value added project. Okay, so here are some networking resources. Like I said, I'm gonna send this to Nikki, and so that you can put this in the email. Okay, but right now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but actually this week, it's Developer Week. So I would, if you're a developer, if you're any sort of tech, I would definitely check it out. I know as of yesterday, they actually waived the fee because of COVID, okay? So I don't know if it's still free because they just started today, actually. So if you want, after this presentation, feel free to go to them and see if they're still taking registrations. I believe it's a 2-day event, okay? And then, like I said, relevant Slack communities are really popular right now. Volunteer to support COVID and build your skills. But this is also, I forgot to put this on, but this is also in terms of Black Lives Matter and every sort of group that is getting together right now for humanitarian reasons. This is also a good place to go, not just COVID, but also like humanitarian efforts as well. There is companies still hiring, and there's articles. There's also this additional resource. You can also Google these as well. But again, I will send this to Nikki about like, how do you ask for help during this time? because this is very unique. This is very different. Okay. But then also, finally, when you're in doubt, because it's going to be an ebb and flow, it's going to be some days you're going to get great hits, other days you're going to get no hits. Okay. So when in doubt, you always want to know that you can always continue to learn, be it network with somebody who has like a profession that you're interested in, but you don't quite know. You can always network, you can always code, you can always build things based on your passions and based on what is going on now. You can show it through your GitHub, blog posts, etc. Okay, and you can also contact employers that have hired engineers in the past. Contact those who, you know, from your alma mater, those who have been hired by them. You know, you definitely want to go back to what works. And even old job postings, they may be old, but things happen at a turn of a dime these days. So a good outreach is also just hello, I hope you're doing well with everything that's going on. I just wanted to check in and see if you're still hiring. Even just asking that question. And also being open to internships, apprenticeships, part-time, because those could lead to something. Contract positions as well. It's very easy, like we were talking about the internal hiring, for you to start out part-time. Actually, I did. I started out at part-time with Flatiron, and now I'm full-time. Okay, so it is highly possible. You always want to be confident, patient, scrappy, and consistent. Okay, so and then here's a little summary. You know, find out what works best for you, and then remember that 80% of jobs come from relationships. So it's always great to build them. And also those relationships can also continue as you continue your job path. A lot of people, when they make connections with recruiters, they say that like 2-3 years down the line, those recruiters change and maybe they change companies, but they still remember you and they still remember your skills. So those are potentially lifelong relationships. Okay, of course, make what makes you unique, and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and think outside the box. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Ellen, I have a couple here. Mm-hmm. One was for connecting with people, like say on LinkedIn, you were mentioning like commenting on posts and reaching out to people. So the question was whether you comment on a post or you reach out directly, which one do you prefer first? And then if you do reach out directly, what do you say? Like if you've obviously never met this person or whatever, like how do you start that introductory conversation?
Great question. Okay, so if the person has posted on LinkedIn, probably they're active. So you can always just post a comment and say, you know, very insightful. Thank you for your insight. I will use that for XYZ. Okay, I would actually do both. If the person is active on LinkedIn, I would do both. I would comment and then I would send them a direct email just to remind them and say, I just wanted to follow up with my comment because I was really inspired. And I was wondering, you know, I was really inspired by what you're doing and what your company is doing. I'm a technical, you know, I'm in the technical field. I'm a software engineer. I'm a data science designer, what have you. And I was wondering if I could hear more about your journey and where your company plans to go. So basically, I know it's a roundabout answer, but doing both really helps you because it's like by commenting, oh yes, of course you read the article. But then when you follow up with a personalized email, you can ask more specific questions. Okay, if you don't feel comfortable commenting on their article, you don't have to. but you know that they're active, you know? So even so, yeah, it can benefit you. Is there another question?
I was actually just going to make a comment too, I think that in a very positive way for so many job seekers, because I mean, I have a background in staffing myself as well, but I think that a lot of times when I used to talk to candidates, they felt like the people that were more, I guess, extroverted kind of had a step above them because they would be able to go to events and connect with people easier, and their personalities just made it a little bit easier sometimes. But, you know, going back to the conversation about a lot of developers or even just different personalities in tech, it's just sometimes you don't have a lot of the most, you know, extroverted or outgoing personalities. But I think especially right now for people that are looking for jobs, everything is virtual, and that kind of levels the playing field a little bit, because I think for people that face to face are a little bit more shy, that doing it over the computer, making comments, sending emails, I think that tends to be a little bit easier for many people. So just to think about that too, that right now, if you are looking for a job, definitely take advantage of that with us being virtual, because right now you don't have to go and try to mingle with, you know, in a room with 50 people or 100 people or whatever, you know, so that may make it a little bit easier.
And you can take your time to craft what you want to say.
True.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Also, if you're an introvert, you can also ask companies about, you can Google, and there are actually speakers who actually speak to this topic too, about being an introvert and how do you network. So those type of speakers are also people you want to target. You know, how did you get out? And what do you have to say and what do you not have to say? You know, and also keep in mind, when you're online, you're also in the comfort of your own home. So it's a little bit more comfortable too. Me as well. Thanks, Nikki. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. There was another question here. Was some people have said that they've reached out to leaders or the CEO owner of companies and don't get responses. So what do you think about reaching out to other people or people that are maybe, you know, for lack of better words, lower on the totem pole, but still work at the company they want to be at?
Yes, absolutely. You know, CEOs, they're tremendously busy. So one rule of thumb when it comes to job searching, don't take non-responses personally. I always tell my students, think about, you are that person and you have 50 emails in your inbox and you have 100 applications sitting on your desk, and you have to schedule 10 interviews by the end of the day. Okay, so definitely it's not personal. And also you can always contact more than one person in the company. Okay, so if the CEO is too daunting for you, go to the head of software engineering, go to the head of UX UI, go to even the head of marketing. Okay, just to get an in. Now, I will say that if you contact probably HR or the recruiting department, you probably won't get a response, and that's normal, because in a way they're there to collect resumes. Okay, but you can definitely follow up with other staff members, and it's not uncommon, if you haven't heard back from them in a week, you can follow up next week. I even had a student that he would send out 10 applications per week. He would figure out his top 3 companies. Then he would pick 3 individuals from each company. So it would be the UX designer, the head of UX, and the HR person. Okay. Then he would take the head of UX and the UX design person. He would follow up with them once. Okay. And if he didn't hear back, and then he would follow up a second time. Only when he didn't hear back the second time would he move on. But he was persistent. He also asked questions that were relevant to that person. So get really familiar with their LinkedIn profile. Get really familiar with the articles that they write. or even the platforms that they visit. Like if they tweet a lot about certain issues, let that give you a sense of the person, and that way you can personalize your messages.
That's actually really awesome advice, Alan. Just being aware of who you're actually speaking to and what matters to them.
Yes,
Exactly.
for sure. Again, yeah.
I've got another question here.
Okay.
Oh, Jan had a comment, said, never thought about reaching out to 3 head of departments. So that, yes, that was really good advice. Another question was, what about resumes? So you see people online that will say on LinkedIn, will post their entire resume, say looking for a job, whatever. Do you think that's good advice, or should you not publicly put your resume out?
What is most effective in terms of the technology industry, what I have found is that resumes are nice, but if you have something to show, like your design portfolio or your GitHub account, that speaks way more volumes than pardon this expression, but a piece of paper. Okay, so if you have a website that you hand built, I would post that first, and then I would put your resume on there. Okay, now there's always exceptions to the rules. Like, let's say there was this young man, and I give him a lot of props. He disagreed with the policies of Facebook currently. So you know what? He quit. And the first thing he did was post his resume on LinkedIn. Obviously, for some people, it's going to work. But also, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So if you have it, I would definitely use your portfolio or your GitHub or your website that you coded first, then your resume.
Very good. There's another question here from Penny, said, when you're reaching out to 3 department heads, do you let each know that you're contacting the other 2?
You don't have to. You don't want to spam the whole entire company. Okay. You don't want to write the same message to each of the department heads. Okay. You definitely, and when I say personalizing, it's not that you have to personalize the whole email. Pick 1 or 2 things that are specific to that person. Okay. That's personalized enough. But yes, go ahead and email them all, but you don't have to let them know, unless the exception is unless it's a mutual contact. If you can mention a mutual contact, like the first phrase of your email should be that mutual contact, because that's going to get the person's attention. Okay, so hope that helps.
There was a comment here from Todd, said might be interesting too to see how much internal dialogue the company has, which that's kind of a different way to look at it too. Yeah,
it's true too,
because I think that too might be able to tell a little bit about their culture.
Yes, and I would limit it to 3. Okay, you don't want to, let's say there's like 10 employees on LinkedIn. You don't want to email all 10, because you're going to be, oh, that guy who emailed everybody, you know?
Yeah, and I think just to take into consideration just this topic is how big or small the company is too, because obviously if it's a startup or it's a smaller company and there's 5, 10, 15 people there, more than likely, like Todd was saying, they probably talk to each other on a daily basis. But if it's a huge company, they might not. And maybe that's why you should reach out to a couple more people. But yeah, I think that's actually pretty interesting.
If you built a personalized project, or we call it value added project. If you built a project that is related to that company in some way, like, hey, I found that like you have a great customer service, and I actually built this chatbot that I would love you to take a look at. Of course, you want to email that to all 3, and more power to you if they're talking about it, right?
Yeah, and I think probably just the last thing I could think of on this topic was just, I think also when you're kind of engaging with people online is that it doesn't always have to be about your technical skills or about your job directly, because I think some people are kind of scared, especially if they're newer, they're entry level, to come across like they're trying to be the expert when they're not yet, or those type of things. So I think definitely, especially in this day and age, so many companies are worried about like their social impact and like giving back and what they're doing for the community. And so I think if there's anything that a company is sharing, like for instance, just to, use an example, like Office Depot is very big about a lot of the stuff that they're doing in the community and giving back. Comment on those posts, talk about how you're interested in those things, or maybe an event that you did recently, or suggesting a different nonprofit in the area that they could support. I think that, kind of shows them that you're in line with their culture, but gives you another topic to talk about if you're, a little bit shy on, kind of talking about yourself or your skills, or maybe you don't feel like you're an expert yet. I think that's another way to kind of engage them.
Absolutely. That's a great tip.
Yeah, and I think that's all the questions I see in the chat. I've been checking online, but does anybody else have any questions? Because we're right at about time, but I want to make sure if anybody wants to, please feel free to take yourself off mute if anybody has anything. It looks like you've done a pretty good job to answer everybody's questions, Ellen.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I will also give Nikki my email. So if you prefer, you can always just email me. I'd be
Okay.
happy to answer.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll send a follow-up email out, like you said, with your information, any links, anything that you guys are looking for. And yes, please feel free to reach out back to Flatiron, and I'm sure that they can help you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Monica.
Yes,
Thank
of
you,
course.
Lindsay, for putting this together. And I wish you all the best and good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.